Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1 hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one of a kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about this evening. And the title of this evening's show is Mainstreamed Media. And that leaves me a little puzzled about what it means. But when we talk to my guest this evening, Todd Kimball, we will learn more about what that means. It sounds interesting, yeah. And how are you feeling this evening?
I'm doing great, Don. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Yeah, and I'm not as nervous as I usually am because I'm getting used to you.
It normally takes a long time, but I appreciate you being quick with that.
Yeah, he's been on the show, and I've got a brief story about Todd. I think the first time you were on the show, we were in the Beaverton studio, and it was stormy and rainy at all get out, and he was late getting there for the start of the show, and he came in soaking wet in his wheelchair. And I says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I had to get here." And he was just smiling from ear to ear as nothing had gone wrong, you know. Talk about courage and tenacity. You personify it.
Well, thank you, but Oregonians don't use an umbrella. Well, what's a little rain, right?
And you went about 4 blocks in the storm.
Well, it was a pretty convenient public transportation trip that night, but happy we have much better weather here on this beautiful spring day.
Well, don't tell that to the audience because they'll want to move up here. But let's continue on now. And where is my cameo guest? Is he in the green room? Will you bring in my guest? Is there a mic for him? Yeah, my good friend is going to come in and do an announcement about his candidacy for the U.S. Senate, and I'm afraid we didn't set that up properly for starters, okay? They're doing it right now. In the meantime, let's continue on, and as you know, we start the show with the Who Are You part. And you got a mic for him?
He's just going to stand between you.
All right, that's good. That's improvised. We do pretty well. Now, you're going to take a minute to 2 minutes to talk about your candidacy for the U.S. Senate, and you are running against who?
As Abraham Lincoln once had a trouble in Illinois, he met a constituent who told him, "I wouldn't vote for you if you were Satan himself."
And what's your name?
My name is Michael Mayo.
Michael Mayo. And you're running for what?
Lincoln answered, "It's a good thing Satan isn't running against me."
Okay.
It's Blumenauer who's running against me.
Blumenauer for what?
Blumenauer is the 3rd District U.S. Congressman.
Okay.
And we differ greatly, Blumenauer and I. And if you vote for Blumenauer, you're going to vote for more of the same.
I thought he was a good man.
I don't consider my opponent to be evil, but I consider us to be in an endless cycle of war, and Blumenauer is complicit in that.
Sure. Please go on.
Oh, okay. Here is why I'm running for office in one chart. In one chart, we have here a bunch of countries.
Now we're going to get a shot of this chart here.
Right, we have a bunch of countries that are compared with the degree of inequality, economic inequality within their countries. The greater the degree of economic inequality, and the United States qualifies as the most of all the countries charted in unequal country, the greater the degree of mental illness and mental disruption in the society. It's
So there's a relationship there.
It's not just the Republicans versus the Democrats. There's a big paradigm shift that we have to make. We have to be more community-oriented. We have to think about the other people in the world, the other people in our country, the other people in our communities.
And Blumenauer doesn't do that well enough to satisfy you.
I'm sorry, but Blumenauer is a hack politician. He gets elected by appealing to corporate interests.
Yeah. And what else can you say about yourself that the viewers would like to know?
I am going to fight for peace because during the Vietnam War, I spent 2 years in federal penitentiary.
Oh man, you're credentialed for sure. 2 years in federal penitentiary.
I know what I'm talking about educating the young. Here is my pin for 20 years service in the Portland public school system.
Okay.
Here is my ID. from the same institution.
All right.
So on that basis, I am qualified to serve as a congressman. I'm a serious candidate.
And you do better than Blumenauer's doing.
I will raise the issue that Blumenauer has not raised about endless war and concentration of economic power in the hands of a minority.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Okay, we kind of rescued that. We forgot to get him set up for when he came on, but we did it. Thanks, Mr. E, our director. Where were we? I was going to talk to you about who you are personally, right?
Right.
So let's pretend people haven't seen you on my show before. And as you know, if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer about who you are personally, you can tell me get lost or something.
Oh, I'll answer anything. I love talking to you.
Todd, if I were to ask your best friend, who is Todd? What would he or she say?
I think that they would say that I'm creative, I'm ambitious, I care about people, I try and fight for the underdog in a creative way that benefits not only that underdog individual, but really helps society to understand the underdog role of people. And just, I believe in having fun. I believe that life is meant to be lived, and you're supposed to have fun when you're on this planet.
Okay, and you are. So, and when and where were you born?
I was born in Walnut Creek, California, which is in the East Bay Area, and I was born in the late 60s. So I'm approaching my 45th birthday coming up this fall.
45 years. You don't look that old.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And is there anything significant about your cultural heritage worth talking about at all?
Well, probably not from an ethnic perspective. I'm a mix of several cultures, Norwegian primarily, but really I did experience a lot of things relating to disability issues, not only with myself and my own disability. I was born with cerebral palsy, but also with my father. He had a brain tumor and was considered a medical miracle, lived with a brain tumor for 17 years, and through that there were a lot of personality changes, a lot of things I saw about how he approached life and how others perceived him. So that did a lot to shape my life.
I betcha.
yeah.
I betcha. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, do you have those?
I do have one sister, a couple of years younger than me. She lives in Pasadena, and she has 2 children. So I have a nephew, Albert, and a niece, Lucy, and they are 4 and 2.
4
So,
and 2.
good kids.
Do they like you?
Yeah, they do. I don't get to see them as often as I'd like, but we always have a good time.
Yeah. Is it okay to ask you about your religious preference if you have one?
Sure, sure. Well, as you know, I'm a humanist. I came into humanism about 7 years ago formally. I think I've always been a humanist. I just didn't know what it was called. So it's nice to be able to find a group of like-minded people.
Yeah, so am I a humanist, and Mike behind the camera over there is a humanist too, and I won't go any more about Mike right now. What were you before you were a humanist?
I was a sports fan who did nothing but watch football on Sundays, so now I'm more enlightened. And
Yeah.
that was, actually, should I tell you the reason that I came across humanism?
Please do.
I really was feeling a little shallow as a sports fan who would watch football in the sports bars on Sunday, and I said, I mean, I like sports, I like my football, but I can watch my football on Mondays and in today's society on Thursdays and Fridays and many days of the week. But so I was feeling a little shallow. I felt like I wanted some connection on Sundays, the way that a lot of people do, but I didn't know a group that I could belong to. I knew what my beliefs were. I just didn't realize there was a formalized group of like-minded people. And I happened to be in Powell's one day, and right at the front of the store they had this book on comparing religions in a one-page summary. And so they had 374 religions from around the world that they compared in a page, and I was flipping through page by page, and I said, no, 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 and there's some strange religions out there when you get down to the 374th one. So I had a lot of no's, but on page 142 I found humanism, and then I said, that's something I could believe in, and sure enough, there was a group that met at a convenient location, and been a humanist ever since.
This is important. And I want to apologize because humanists don't proselytize, but I'll forgive Todd this time.
I apologize.
No, of course not. How about your formal education?
Well, I have an MBA and a bachelor's degree in finance. I went to Fresno State for my undergraduate, and then went to Arizona State for my master's degree. So I went from the warm climate to the obscenely warm climate, but it was a good time, both schools.
Do you work to earn your living now?
I do. Well, mainstream media is my full-time job, and then I do have a very part-time job at Montgomery Park through a company called Amwest Entertainment. But gradually, as mainstream media has grown, I've been able to cut back on my hours there, and really mainstream media is full-time.
So, one full-time job is not enough for you.
Well, it's just that raising funds for a nonprofit that's never been done before, you have to have a little backup income to get things rolling, but I'm pretty happy with where things are right now.
Do you have a partner, a girlfriend, boyfriend, or something like that?
Well, I am single at the moment. I was married for a long time, married for 11 years, with my ex-wife for 15 years, but we went our separate ways in a unique story, which I won't get into. But the 11-year marriage, the 1-minute breakup, and the can opener is quite a story. So
We'll see if we have some time later on. But knowing you and I, we won't have any time later on. Your political persuasion, I know what it is. Will you tell the viewers what it is?
sure, I am a very liberal Democrat. In fact, there are very few Democrats that are liberal enough for my tastes. So, you know, like I say, I really believe in fighting for the underdog. I believe that a healthy society is one that offers equality and freedom for people of all backgrounds, and so I'm pretty liberal in my thoughts.
Can those two terms go together, liberal Democrat nowadays?
Maybe not. There might be a few of them still around.
All right. Do you have any memberships in political, social, or civic organizations worth mentioning?
Well, I've always found Toastmasters to be a beneficial organization for myself. I belong to Mac Toastmasters, and that's been a very supportive group. We meet very early every Monday morning, and so I've made some great friends through there. And I don't know how much you know about Toastmasters, but they have
A
competitions
little.
throughout the year, and so you know, when you have competitions with other clubs and people from around the state, it's always great to meet people, and so that's been a nice organization.
Yeah. Persons from the past that you liked or admired particularly. You have any names that come to mind?
Yeah, I've always admired. I mean, he's long since no longer with us, but I've always admired Norman Rockwell because to me he had a blend of the human spirit and capturing different aspects of society. But he also was able to make money in a variety of different ways doing that. So I always felt like he stayed pretty true to who he was. But also, you know, made some money while doing it. And I think anytime you can do that in society, it's a good thing. And I really admire his work.
Say a few words about Norman Rockwell for those viewers who are younger than us.
Well, the thing was, he was an artist, and he was a writer, and he wrote for New York Magazine for many years. And
Saturday Evening Post.
yeah,
Yeah.
and did the cover as well as some of the writing, and he did posters, both artwork and writing for World War II, but he also did artwork for the civil rights movement, and he was just a great commentator in his own visual way on American society, and so I really enjoy his work.
Somebody said a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think Norman Rockwell proved that, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, what else can I ask you? How do you see the mainstream media? Is it left, right, or center?
Well, and again, I should probably talk about my organization just for a minute, because my organization was a bit of a play on words, mainstreamed media. And so I don't want people to get confused by that term as I talk about this.
We'll get into
Yeah.
the main discussion on that
Yeah,
later.
but the mainstream media, I definitely think I mean, I think most people would agree that it's conservative, that it's guided, if not um, pulled by corporate interests. So, I mean, the bottom line is that large corporations tend to be conservative. They're not looking out for the masses, they're looking out for the favored few. And so I definitely view the mainstream media as very conservative and not healthy for society.
Some people say we've lost contact with the reality of what certain terms mean nowadays. And you're talking about conservative mainstream media. And looking at what conservative means, some people say you can't call them conservative, they're beyond conservative or something else.
Yeah, I mean, even in the last, 20, 25 years when I first became interested in politics, it seemed like a lot of Republicans still fought for the rights and the opportunities of small business owners. But gradually, that has been lost by the Republican Party, in my opinion. They pretty much just fight for the interests of extremely large businesses and multinational businesses. So, yeah, I definitely think that a conservative today is much different than a conservative of 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay. What's right with America today? What's right? Tick them off.
Um, well, I guess what's right about it is that you still do have opportunities. I mean, if you have a good idea, you can get in front of people and make it happen. And that's what I'm trying to do with my organization.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we might not have the exact freedom that we would want to have, and
Mm-hmm.
we get frustrated by the political system and by the economic system, we still have significant opportunities here compared to the rest of the world. And I've got to say, for one thing, in my situation, as a person that uses a power wheelchair, we build ramps and accessible bathrooms better than any other country, and I'm grateful for that. So,
Yeah. What's wrong with America? You only have about 3 hours to talk about that. Anyhow, give us just
I could
a
probably
few
finish it up
minutes.
in about 3 hours
No,
with
no.
what's wrong with America, but kind of the opposite of what I said. I think that society is governed by large corporations, by a very very small group of people that have political agendas,
Mm-hmm.
and the Supreme Court decision for corporations being equated to people, that was an awful decision, which has sent our country in a wrong direction, in my opinion.
What do we need to do to fix what's wrong with America?
Well, I think that when you look at fixing things, you've got to look at the system first, and
Mm-hmm.
what aspects can we change about the system, and then as the system changes, society will gradually change. So if we can somehow get that Supreme Court decision overturned, where money can have a little less influence in politics, then I think that can go quite a ways. When politicians can actually listen to the voters instead of having to raise millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to get elected. And if we can change the amount of money that it takes to get elected in this country, then we can have a society where the citizens have more power. And when you have a society where the citizens have more power, I think you're moving in the right direction toward fixing a lot of ills.
Boy, you have verified indeed that you are quite far to the left. You're going to fall off the edge if you go any further to the left. So let's take a break, Mr. Director, and we come back and we'll talk about mainstreamed media. I'm curious about what's going to happen in that discussion. Shall we break now, please? back, and thank you for staying tuned. And for those of you who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1 hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there and like my friend Todd about who he is personally and whatever else we've decided to talk about. And we're going to talk about mainstream media. And let me stop talking so I can have you talk about mainstream media.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question, okay?
Sure.
What is mainstreamed media?
Okay. Well, Mainstream Media is a nonprofit organization that I started just about exactly 2 years ago now. And the mission of the organization is to provide people with developmental disabilities with a media voice and a platform for community involvement. And the way that we do that is I have 38 reporters that are a part of my organization right now.
38.
All with developmental disabilities. And the service that we provide for them is we get them press passes to events that they would enjoy. And this can be concerts, live theater, stand-up comedy, business events, political events, whatever they're interested in. And then as members of the media, they go backstage and they interview the celebrities. And we put the work up on our website and promote it via social media to give them the widest audience possible.
So is another way of getting people like yourself involved in mainstream society.
Well, absolutely, and it's primarily people with developmental disabilities. So think the Special Olympics, but think of very individualized Special Olympics where people with developmental disabilities are not just involved in participating in sports, but they're involved in theater, they're involved in music, they're involved in politics. And they are the leaders, they are the reporters giving their perspective and drawing out the local and national celebrities in a very unique way. So our reporters have talked to Lewis Black, they've talked to Lyle Lovett, they've talked to Bob Eubanks, they've talked to Chip Kelly. We do a lot of things in comedy. They talked to the Sklar brothers recently. So it's a whole range of activities that our reporters have covered and interviewed, and really great for them to not only meet national celebrities, but establish really meaningful local relationships with local celebrities here in town.
Sounds great. Yeah, and it's taking off. It's doing well.
It is really excited that we just it has been a one-man operation since the start of the organization, but I was able to hire a creative director for Mainstream Media. Her name's Kelly Davis, and she's really an amazing individual. She's the former media relations director for the Rose City Rollers, the women's roller derby team, which does just incredible work empowering women and great work in the Portland community. She also spent 4 years on the set of Saturday Night Live behind the scenes, and she has a 10-year history of caring for people with developmental disabilities. So really the perfect combination of skills to bring aboard for Mainstream Media.
Yeah, and she was supposed to be here with you tonight.
She was. She's a stay-at-home mom with her 4-year-old daughter Jackie, and had a little childcare issue. Couldn't be with us tonight, but she's a great lady.
Next time you're on, we'll make her come with you. Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And why did you start the organization? You say a few more words about that?
Sure, absolutely. I think that as a person with a disability who grew up, my childhood was in the 70s, so it was long before the ADA, which of course passed in 1991.
The ADA, the Americans for Democratic, no.
Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yes.
I saw my share of inaccessibility, even though I spent the majority of my childhood in California, which by disability standards was pretty accessible compared to other parts of the country. And so I saw, inaccessibilities. I saw, just to give you an example,
Sure.
and this is kind of an off-the-cuff kind of example that most people probably don't know. But growing up, I didn't use a men's restroom until I was 15 years old, because they would only make one restroom in any public facility wheelchair accessible, and they always made the women's restroom accessible. And so for the first 15 years of my life, I had to go into the women's restroom.
Did you have gender confusion?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, it would have been logical if I did, but I think I'm clear on that. But I remember the first time, actually, I was 16, the first time I used a men's accessible restroom was on the campus of the University of Washington. I was visiting the campus to consider going to school there, and I saw the wheelchair sign on the men's restroom, and I was shocked. I've never been in a men's restroom before, so it was kind of interesting. So you see those kind of things, and then you see things gradually get better for people with physical disabilities, and but in life, I mean, I want to represent the entire spectrum of people with disabilities. So a year prior to starting Mainstream Media, I worked for an organization which cared for people with developmental disabilities. And my reaction to that work, even though that company was doing the best they could, was, hey, we really haven't figured out how to include people with developmental disabilities into society. And I felt like Mainstream Media would be a way to do that, because some of the barriers they face, about 95% of people with developmental disabilities aren't working, so they don't have income to afford concert tickets or sports tickets, theater tickets. They can't go. So I said, well, if I get them press passes, I've eliminated the economic barrier. And then another barrier was that oftentimes they need staff to go with them to the event, and I have a very dedicated staff of volunteers and people in the sphere of Mainstream Media that can help them get to events. And I wanted to make the event truly important. When I was working for the disability organization, they got very excited if Johnny got to go to a movie, and they said, hey, we want to have Johnny see 3 movies a year. And I was like, what's the big deal if they see a movie? They're sitting in the back, they have no interaction. So I wanted to make people with developmental disabilities the true leaders, the true stars of the show, the leaders in the process, as they say. And so Mainstream Media has done that. Because a lot of times when I was with the disability organization, they'd say, well, Johnny can see a movie next week. And in the Mainstream Media format, there's none of that. This is a scheduled interview. They got to be there right on time. It's a big deal talking to a national celebrity. So I think that Mainstream Media has done a pretty good job eliminating the barriers, and we're just hoping to grow the organization.
Mainstreamed media. How do you get money to start this? It takes some money, doesn't it?
Well, it didn't take very much, which was a good thing because I didn't have any. So, but gradually, we've started our fundraising, and we have an interesting program that's been our primary revenue generator called Sponsor a Reporter. And this has been a great way to not only sustain the mission of the organization, but also expose people with developmental disabilities to the business world and businesses that they're interested in. Because the way Sponsor a Reporter works is we match up reporters with local businesses here in the community that they like, that they have an interest in, and then they go out and do a feature on that business, and then each time the reporter does an interview with a celebrity, then that business gets a 30-second commercial within their interview. So that's been a great program, and we have CD Baby as a sponsor, and Gresham Ford, and a lot of great local companies.
So this program is being taped here in Portland, and we're talking about the Portland metro area when he mentions some of these organizations and Powell's books and like that, so you know where we're coming from, what's going on. And you have a website for Mainstreamed Media. What are people going to see when they go to that website? Will you put that up, Mr. E? Yeah. What are people going to get? Yeah, Mainstreamed Media, www.mainstreamedmedia.org. What are people going to get when they go there?
Well, the number one thing that they're going to get is they're going to get engaging interviews done by people with developmental disabilities with local and national celebrities. And on our homepage right now, the first video that people see is an interview done by Mainstream Media reporter Laddie Reed with Greg Palast.
Greg Palast?
Yeah.
Name dropper.
Yeah. So a very, very fun interview where they really connected with each other on political views, and just kind of fighting against that mainstream media bias.
Yeah, all right. How do you see the organization evolving in the future? Is it going to continue to grow and get bigger or what?
Well, I hope so. I really would like this to be a national organization, and I feel like I have a business model to make that happen. We want to expand it chapter by chapter, city by city, because as a humanist and just a person that really likes to fight for the underdog, I don't want people uh, with developmental disabilities in Portland, I don't want them to be the only ones having fun. I want people in Los Angeles and San Diego and Seattle and many, many, many cities to have fun and showcase their talents. So, you got to get the second city started before you can really think about major expansion. But we hope to have a second city up and running by early summer. So.
So this whole project is a source of enjoyment for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's great to see the talents that people with developmental disabilities have. And you asked me, what was my motivation for starting it? And one of the things that I saw about the way people with developmental disabilities were treated in society was that they tended to be kind of warehoused, would be the term that I would say, that they were given repetitive tasks to do, whether it be stuffing envelopes or bagging groceries or creating bookmarks, more your repetitive tasks. And what I noticed about, and I'm generalizing a little bit here, but what I noticed about the developmental disability population is that they're very loving, they're very creative, they're very expressive, and so expressive, creative people, they don't want to do repetitive tasks. It's kind of like asking your public relations person to do cost accounting. It doesn't work. And mainstream media really allows them to express their creativity and have fun, and much more fitting for their personalities. So I think to and one of the other things I didn't mention about myself is I come from a background of staffing. That was my primary career before mainstream media, and so I really have a passion for finding that job, finding that purpose for people that they really enjoy. So I feel like I've done that with mainstream media. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to grow the organization, and I think it's going to be even more fun.
Looks like you enjoy it, yeah. I'm enjoying visiting with you about it right now. But it looks like, is there anything more you can think of that would be useful for the viewers to hear about mainstream media or anything else right now before we go into some other topics?
Sure, I think one thing, we're really in a volunteer recruitment drive right now, looking for many more volunteers to come aboard with mainstream media, because I'm changing the way that we utilize volunteers. In the past, I've asked volunteers to do specific tasks like video editing or contacting publicists or video promotion, that kind of thing. But I want to change the way that we integrate volunteers in our organization and make it so that it's relationship based, so that the volunteers have a very specific relationship with groups of the reporters, and we'll group it by subject interest. So if a volunteer has an interest in sports, then I'd like them to be a part of our sports reporters, which is 7 or 8 reporters that really love sports. And if a volunteer loves music, then they can interact with our music reporters. And so grouping it by subject area, I think, is going to be a great way to do it. And so we're looking for more volunteers.
Do you hear that out there? More volunteers, and you saw the website and you saw Todd's email address. So bug him, will you, and come out and help him with this wonderful project. So let's continue on with some other stuff.
Sure.
All right. What about healthcare in the U.S. compared to the rest of the world? What do you think about our healthcare system compared to the rest of the world?
Well, I don't. It depends on what you're looking for, right? Like, people who like our healthcare system, generally Republicans, will say, "Oh, we have the best healthcare system in the world." And I guess we do if you're looking for very specific surgeries and you have a lot of money. But for most people, if you're just looking to live as healthy as possible for as long as possible, I don't think we have a good system. We have a system which creates numerous, thousands of bankruptcies every year. And I just don't think it's a system that represents the overall population.
Yeah. Some people suggested that Medicare for all an expansion of the VA program or Medicare to cover all citizens. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think it is, and it's funny to me when you hear the arguments against it that government programs are too costly. But when you really look at it, your choices are a government program or a private program, and of course your private corporate programs, they have to satisfy shareholders and constantly get that satisfactory return on investment, which is much more expensive than government costs. So that argument that government more expensive just it doesn't hold any water with me.
Are we going to eventually have some kind of health care for all, Medicare for all, or something in the future in our country? Do you think that's going to come to pass?
I think we will. I mean, even hardcore Republicans, when they have a loved one who gets very very sick and they see hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, then they start to question the system. And when enough people start to question the system, I think there's a movement to fix it. It might not be ideal. It might not be what you and I would be looking for, from day one. But I think we'll move in a direction which covers more people. And really, I mean, for a country to stay vibrant, they need productivity from all of their citizens, or as many citizens as possible. And in order to get productivity from as many citizens as possible, you got to have them be healthy. So I think it's in everyone's best interest.
All right, so let's move on from healthcare to something else you expressed an interest in. And when I mentioned it, I thought your eyes sort of lit up a little bit.
Okay.
Drones, did we talk about drones?
Sure,
You
sure,
got
we
me.
can talk about that. I think that's a terrible direction in the military, and it allows people to not understand the devastation of war. It makes killing people seem more like a video game than something that's real, and I mean, for your military companies and for nations like the U.S., I mean, it's obviously cheaper and easier, but I think when people really feel the human cost of war, then it's real, and when war is real, we've got a chance of averting war versus our drone system of today.
What about surveillance drones? You think that's a good idea?
No,
Why, Todd?
surveillance drones is just an excuse to get in the right place. It's pretty easy to put a bomb on that surveillance drone by accident, and
Darn.
I don't trust our system to keep it at just surveillance. I don't like that idea either.
Oh, you might say I'm a pessimist, but it's gone so far now in our world today, the use of drones, just suddenly in the past year, 2 years or so, I'm learning the extent to which America's using drones around the world. It's just scary, and it's sort of like putting the genie back in the bottle. And I think about major discoveries in warfare and poison gas and back to the machine gun. And when those things came aboard, we said, well, this is going to end all world wars because they're so destructive. So in the past, they didn't end all wars. And now we have this drone situation, and I hope I live long enough to see where we do something about that. That's too depressing. Let's talk about something else.
Okay.
U.S. military bases worldwide. What do you think about U.S. bases? Do you think America is an empire?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I wish that America had a much smaller military. If it were up to me, we'd have about the same military size as Costa Rica, which is nothing. But I just think we could put our resources in better places. But it's not going to be an aspect that's changing anytime soon, or at least changing to the level that you or I would like to see.
What's it going to take to have the America reduce its a number of bases worldwide? Any thoughts about how we can reverse that direction?
It's probably going to happen pretty slowly. I mean, it's kind of like you said, putting the genie back in the bottle. I mean, anytime, because military bases take a tremendous amount of manpower, they take a tremendous amount of financial investment. And so when you have manpower that's committed to it, you have investment that's committed to it, you basically have power that is running those bases. And power doesn't give up power easily. But I do think that people are starting to understand with the economic malaise that the country's been in for in my opinion, close to 12 years now, that maybe money can be better spent in other ways to help society, to build society, to create positive, productive jobs and aspects of society. To me, there's nothing positive about a military presence. It creates death and destruction.
Hmm. Now, as we were talking, another thought came to mind, and I was listening to you. Austerity. You want to talk about austerity
Uh,
a little bit?
I know you got a lot of things on the list there. We could jump to something else on the
U.S.
list.
gun violence.
Okay, that's a subject that I have a lot of thoughts on because I actually think it relates to our foreign policy in a way. Okay, I mean I've been listening to the rhetoric on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, when it comes to gun control, and I think that there are very clear differences in the way the political party looks at the issue. Democrats believe that anyone is capable of violence in a moment of madness when their lives maybe have spiraled out of control or they have something that's not going well in their lives. So Democrats believe the fewer guns in the hands of people, the better society is, the healthier society will be. And Republicans believe that uh, that if we only could arm the good guys, then they'll take care of the bad guys and we'll have a healthy society. So they believe that you can easily tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys, and you arm the right people, and then you're all set. But again, Democrats believe that anyone is capable of being good or bad at some point in life, and so if you reduce the number of guns in society, then you're going to have a safer, more peaceful society. And the reason that relates to our economic policy, our foreign policy, is that it's the same thing with terrorism, right? Republicans believe that if we can only identify the terrorists, then we just eliminate them and we'll have a safer world. Where Democrats believe that if you continue to bomb people, you create enemies, you create terrorists, and so the violence, the terror will never create a healthier world.
So then, I think we're fairly well educated in our leadership, and don't you think that they are aware of what you just said, that that's a reality? So there must be some other motivation as to why it is, as a proliferation of guns, and those people who get killed along the way who decide to become terrorists, perhaps they shouldn't be around anyhow. So we reduce their numbers, and if, as long as we keep reducing their numbers, we're ahead of the game. And I'm getting depressed again. What about the right wing's insistence that if the government takes away our guns, then we're not able to stage a citizens' revolt and replace the government? What do you think of that argument?
I think that argument is completely bogus. I think that society has changed a lot in 250 years, and unless people are keeping a stealth weapon in their garage, an airline fighter plane, then the government's going to be able to do what they want to do, and we're not going to be able to stop them with a machine gun or a handgun or whatever. So that's just an argument that doesn't hold any water, and it's just a way for Republicans to continue to proliferate the guns within our society and keep the society that we have.
So it seems like to me that we need to do something about the number of school shootings and the massive clips with way too many rounds that are not needed for deer hunting, for example. Do you think there's going to be any real gun control legislation that's successful at this time?
Yeah, eventually. I think that is a movement that the majority of people are behind. If you look at the numbers, most people would rather not see the ease of buying an assault rifle, for instance, and so I think that politicians have to have a lot of pushback before they really pass legislation both on a local and a national level, and the NRA is very powerful. But eventually, the public will win out on this one, and you'll see some positive legislation in that area.
You do, huh?
Yeah.
I wonder. I wonder. I keep picking these things to talk about for which I don't have an answer, and hopefully you teach me something along the way here. So we have a little more time left. Is America living up to its promise overall? America has a promise, supposedly.
Well, I think one of the things about our society today is different people would have a different idea of what that promise is. So you give me the promise that America has made to its people, and I'll tell you whether it's living up to that.
Okay. Are you the host now?
Well,
Well, there's a promise implied in the Constitution and our founding documents that there's opportunity for every citizen to move ahead and move up the ladder and do better and better, and succeeding generations will do better economically and socially. And it seems like in the past 20 years or so since Reaganomics, that has stopped. It went on pretty well after the end of World War II, but it doesn't look like America is living up to its promise, and its diminishing ability to live up to its promise is so gradual and slow until people are not aware of it, until you say, oh my God, what's going on here? And that's starting to happen now. So I think America is not living up to its implied promise.
well, I would agree with that, and I think it starts with economics and with systems, and you know this up until the 1940s, basically America had a 90% marginal tax rate, meaning that the richest people in America paid 90% in taxes, and it stayed fairly high, the marginal tax rate, up until the 70s. It was at 75%, and then under Reagan it dropped down to 50%. But of course now we're at 35, 36%, and it just seems like America doesn't really understand the tax issue, and they're easily swayed to vote against their interest for that. Because when you talk about raising the marginal tax rate by 1 or 2%, society just screams about that. But if they really understood history and they saw how America has created a vast gap between the rich and the poor, primarily, in my view, due to the change in tax policy, if people understood that history, I think that we'd have a better society. So that would be maybe the first thing I would change is educate Americans on tax policy and see if we can make some changes there to create some more equality.
Well, isn't the corporate media educating people about the truth about taxes? I can't say that with a straight face.
Yeah, highly unlikely.
Yeah. Uh, it seems that somehow or other Americans, when they hear the word tax or taxes, it makes them sick. Whereas in the European social democracies, people say, yeah, my taxes are high and it's okay. And I feel okay about that because of the benefits I get from my government. So how do we go about having the average American feel the same way about taxation that the Europeans do?
I think it's going to take a huge grassroots movement. I mean, literally a national grassroots movement to have seminars about tax policy, and you better make it sound more interesting than that, otherwise nobody will show up. But I think if people really understood that the taxes are what fund a society, and the way that we allocate that money is going to determine what our society looks like. And I think that if you just laid it out for people very simply and said, what kind of society would you like to have? Would you like to have a society with with good health care? Would you like to have a society with good roads and good technological infrastructure? Would you like to have a society that emphasized peace instead of war? I think that people would vote for interests. They would vote for those peaceful, positive, inclusive interests, but somehow that's getting lost in our political system because corporate rhetoric gets in the way.
Corporate rhetoric, what's that? Yeah, well, we keep moving in the direction of having us go back to when things were better and opportunities for the average American were there. It's amazing. All these years, things have been moving forward gradually in leaps and bounds and being stuck for a while. Perhaps we're in a period now where they're stuck for a while.
Well, and just to maybe end things on a more positive note, because I think that there are aspects of society that are much better.
Hmm.
I mean, just the idea that we can talk to anyone in the world instantaneously and have connections and relationship with people anywhere in the world, that is a very exciting concept and something that I think is going to change society forever moving forward. And if we can combine that with some political and some economic policies that also look out for the greater good of people, I think we could really move society in the right direction.
Bradley Manning and Assange and WikiLeaks. What do you think of that whole thing?
You know, I don't have as probably as strong an opinion as others would on that. I think that with WikiLeaks, you know, I think it's good when people can see what's happening among the truly powerful in society, and anyone who kind of pulls back the curtain on a variety of issues and shows society that, I think overall is positive.
Who's going to pull back the curtains? Well, we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to read a poem I wrote a short time ago, since we have time for it, I think I read before, but I am so partisan I want to read it again. Okay? It's called Rest in Peace. Rest in peace, poor people's President Hugo Chavez. They got you, my friend. Sad to say that is my first thought. Oh, the cancer that ended your life may have had a usual ordinary cause. However, history shows that once in a lifetime beautiful human beings such as you are such a threat to the ruling elite that they must kill them. Would that I could simply accept the simple grieving at the loss of another lover like Jesus, Gandhi, King, or Che. But like others I've seen today, my pain is contaminated by a deep and profound outrage at the ultimate greed that drives the they. And it is and will be hard to continue to hope and dream about a time when the next Hugo Chavez or Jesus, Gandhi, King, or Che is successful at controlling the they, so that a Bolivian 21st century socialism is realized worldwide and humankind does not perish from this earth. That's my tribute to Hugo Chavez, my most recent hero. What
I
do you
like
think of
that.
that?
Well, I think he was a hero to his people, and a hero that was misunderstood by the world and mischaracterized by most of the media in the world. But you know, in my mind, he's a hero as well.
Oh, thank you. I was a little dicey there. I didn't check with you first. Okay, it's close to time for us to stop visiting and get ready to say goodnight. Keep those pens and pencils handy, because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. And thanks again for watching. I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative, about any aspect of the show, and I mean it. It helps us to give you a better show in the future. Now, for a few public service announcements, my director will put up on the screen, and I'll talk about those. First PSA, to get Dr. Don shows broadcast regularly by your local public access station anywhere in the country, go to www.pegmedia.org and tell them you want them to show my shows in that area of the country. And corporate personhood. Oh, we got to end corporate personhood. Go to www.movetoamend.org to eliminate the idea that corporations are persons with equal rights as human beings, flesh and blood. What do we have next there, Mr. E? Oh, the American Civil Liberties Union. I almost genuflect when I read that. I'm a member of the ACLU for 30,000 years or so. Without the American Civil Liberties Union, our civil liberties would be further in the pits than they are now. And what else do we have coming up here? My favorite thought for the day is it'll be talked about in the end of the show. Okay, KFC. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. to you too. And you too. And you too. Thanks again for watching. Good night, Mike.